Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you are. My name is Anthony. Welcome to the Humble Word Program. Once again, we're going to be looking at Ephesians chapter 6. But how far we go on this, I don't know. All I'm going to do is say turn to Ephesians chapter 6, and we're going to be again reading in verse 4. I've missed a day this week, so I want to go a little bit faster than normal and try to catch up the best that I can. So Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4. Servants, be obedient to them that are your masters according to the flesh, with fear and trembling and singleness of heart, as unto Christ, not with eye service as men pleasers, but as the servants of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart, with good will, doing service as to the Lord and not unto men. Verse 8, knowing that whatsoever good thing any man doeth, the same shall he receive of the Lord, whether he be bond or free. And ye masters, do the same things unto them, forbearing, threatening, knowing that your master also is in heaven. Neither is there respect of persons with him. This passage here, these verses 5 through 9, are controversial in a way because what they talk about is slavery. Yes, they talk about other things, and yes, it can be applied or it can be even interpreted differently. But the word here, servant, is the word doulos, which is also interpreted or translated as the word slave. And in the context of this culture in which this was written, slavery was a common thing. So does the Bible condone slavery, as a lot of people want to say about the Bible? No. The Bible is not condoning slavery. Paul, the Apostle Paul, nor Jesus ever condoned slavery. What they were doing, however, was addressing the condition, addressing the situation that they're in with how they are to live before God. In other words, there's some things you just can't change in life. How are you going to live? Are you going to live for God, or are you going to let the circumstances dictate how you live? So what Paul is saying is servants or slaves, whether you're indentured, whether you have been sold, whether you have been bought, whether you've been captured, or whether or not you're just considered an employee. Servants, slaves, be obedient to them according to your masters, according to the flesh, with fear and trembling and singleness of heart as unto Christ. The clear direction here is that we do not ultimately answer to man, we answer to God. And how we are to conduct ourselves in this world, regardless of our situation, regardless of our position in life, we are to conduct ourselves as servants of a higher slave owner, a higher master, a higher boss, and that is God. We are to be acting like, living like, being like Christ, no matter where we are. And how is this? Well, we begin to see when he says in singleness of heart as unto Christ, but not with eye service as men pleasers, but as the servants of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart. You see, it doesn't matter what you're doing, what position you're in, do it in such a way that God will be pleased with how you do it. So if you're working a job, let's put it in a modern context. If you're working at a factory It says here, not with eye service. What's eye service? Well, eye service means that you're doing your best only when someone is looking. In other words, you are doing service for the eyes to see. How many people do that? A whole lot. I mean, I've worked with people, and I guess I've been guilty of it myself. When the boss is watching, you always do better, right? Well, Paul's saying that shouldn't be a mark of the Christian. The Christian should always be doing his best, not because the boss may or may not be watching, but that Christ always is. Then it goes on to say, not with eye service as men pleasers, but as servants of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart. I preach against legalism. I preach against doing things just to check off the boxes, you know? And a lot of times, if not most of the times, that is spoken of in a religious context. But it can also be very commonly applied in a workplace context. Because, you know, I used to drive a school bus, and I used to train others on how to drive a school bus. And part of driving a school bus was the pre-trip and post-trip that you do to the buses, which is part, you know, of having a CDL license and driving a professional vehicle here. And so you do some checks, you go down a checklist of things to make sure that this thing that you're going to be driving is safe. But a lot of people, unfortunately, will go down that checklist as quick as they can just to show that they've done the checklist, but they've never really taken the time to check things the way it should have been. Oh yeah, they completed the checklist. So by law, they're free of any consequences, right? But not when it comes to the heart, not when it comes to having to answer to God for what you do. And so, as I've always said, when you do these checklists, get it done, but do it from the heart. Do it because you mean it. Do it because it's the right thing to do. Do it because there are greater consequences than just getting fired. It can cost someone their life. So, whatever you do, whether it be you being a slave, whether it you being a servant in a household of rich people, or ultimately as the boss yourself, realize that no matter what you do, even if the cameras are not rolling, even if the boss is not hovering over your shoulder and breathing down your neck, there is a God who sees all. And one day, we will have to give an account. And so therefore, remember, his eyes go back and forth and never blink. He sees it. He sees everything all the time, including the heart. Well, God bless. Thank you for being with me today. We will pick up again next week, well, maybe, who knows, next episode, whenever that is. We're going to be picking up in verse 10. Yes, verse 10. And this is where we actually get into the armor of God. So have a blessed day. Remember, God's watching. But know that he loves you too, and that he's always watching over you. See you in the next video. God bless.